Rob Reiner was more than just a famous name in Hollywood. He was part of its very fabric, a piece of its enduring royalty. Born into the industry as the son of the legendary comedian and director Carl Reiner, he carved out his own monumental legacy. First, he became a household face as Michael Meathead Stivic on the groundbreaking 1970s sitcom All in the Family. The character was a symbol of a generation, and Rob's portrayal earned him widespread recognition and affection. But his true genius would blossom behind the camera, where he directed a string of films that have since become timeless classics. Movies like The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and A Few Good Men were not just box office hits. They defined cinematic moments for millions of people around the world. His life partner in this journey was Michele Singer Reiner. Their love story was one born from the magic of movie-making itself. They met on the set of When Harry Met Sally, a film celebrated for its witty and heartfelt exploration of love and friendship. Michele was a photographer, capturing the moments behind the scenes, and their connection was immediate and profound. They married in 1989 and built a life together that seemed, from the outside, to be the pinnacle of success and stability. Together they raised 3 children, Jake, Romy, and their youngest Nick, in their sprawling Los Angeles home, creating a family unit that was deeply enmeshed in the creative and social circles of the entertainment world. The Reiner name carried with it a sense of warmth, humor, and progressive values. Rob was not only a celebrated artist but also a vocal political activist, using his platform to advocate for causes he believed in. Michele stood steadfastly by his side, a supportive and grounding presence. They were fixtures at industry events, yet they were known more for their down-to-earth kindness than for the glitz and glamour that often surrounds such powerful figures. They hosted friends, supported fellow artists, and seemed to have navigated the treacherous waters of Hollywood fame with grace and integrity. Their home was a hub of creativity and laughter, a place where friends and family felt welcomed and cherished. Their partnership was a testament to enduring love in a town where relationships are often fleeting. For over 3 decades, Rob and Michele Reiner represented a kind of stability that was both rare and admired. He was the visionary director, she the steadfast partner, and together they seemed to have it all. A beautiful family, immense professional success, and the deep respect of their peers. Their story was supposed to be one of Hollywood's happy endings, a narrative of love, family, and artistic achievement that would be celebrated for generations. No one could have ever imagined that their final chapter would be written not in a script, but in the grim reality of a police report. The idyllic image of the Reiner family was shattered on a quiet Sunday afternoon, just weeks before Christmas. On December 14, 2025, the Los Angeles Fire Department received a dispatch call for medical aid at a residence in a wealthy enclave of the city. The address was instantly recognizable as the home of Rob and Michele Reiner. First responders arrived at the sprawling property around 3:30 in the afternoon, expecting a medical emergency of a conventional sort. But what they found inside would send a shockwave of horror through Los Angeles and beyond. The scene was far from a simple medical call. It was the site of a brutal and incomprehensible act of violence. Inside the home, emergency personnel made a devastating discovery. Rob Reiner, 78, and his wife, Michele, were found deceased. The initial hope that this was some kind of tragic accident quickly evaporated as the nature of their injuries became apparent. The bedroom, the private sanctuary of their long and loving marriage, had been transformed into a place of unimaginable violence. It was later revealed that their own daughter had been the one to find them, a traumatic discovery that would compound the family's grief. The Los Angeles Police Department was immediately called to the scene, and the home was sealed off with yellow crime tape, a stark and jarring sight against the backdrop of manicured lawns and peaceful neighborhood streets. News of the deaths began to circulate slowly at first, then with the ferocious speed of a wildfire. Initial reports were vague, speaking only of 2 bodies discovered at the Reiner residence. But as the afternoon turned into evening, a more sinister narrative began to take shape. Law enforcement sources, speaking on the condition of anonymity, hinted that the deaths were being investigated as a double homicide. This revelation was met with disbelief. Who would want to harm Rob and Michele Reiner, a couple so universally beloved and respected? The question hung heavy in the air as reporters and news vans descended upon the quiet residential street, their cameras pointed at the home where a Hollywood fairy tale had just met a gruesome end. Within hours, the tragedy took an even darker and more heartbreaking turn. The Los Angeles Police Department announced that they had made an arrest in connection with the murders. The suspect was not a stranger, not a burglar whose crime had gone horribly wrong. The person taken into custody was the Reiner's own son, 32-year-old Nick Reiner. He was apprehended several hours after his parents' bodies were found, reportedly after being seen at a nearby gas station. The news was almost too painful to process. The son, who had once been the focus of his father's creative work and a recipient of his family's unwavering support, was now the sole suspect in their brutal slayings. To understand the tragedy that befell the Reiner family, one must look at the long and painful journey of their youngest son, Nick. His life was a stark contrast to the privilege and stability that his family name suggested. From a very young age, Nick grappled with profound and debilitating challenges. His struggles with substance abuse began in his early teens, a common enough story of adolescent rebellion, but one that quickly spiraled into a life-threatening addiction. He was in and out of rehabilitation facilities from the age of 15, embarking on a seemingly endless cycle of treatment, brief periods of sobriety, and devastating relapses. His parents, Rob and Michele, poured immense resources and emotional energy into trying to save him. Nick's problems were not limited to addiction. He also battled severe mental health issues, a dark companion to his substance abuse. Reports indicated that he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, a complex and often misunderstood mental illness that can distort a person's perception of reality. The combination of addiction and severe mental illness is often referred to as a dual diagnosis, creating a whirlwind of challenges that are incredibly difficult to manage, even with the best medical care. For Nick, this meant a life lived on the edge, constantly teetering between moments of clarity and descents into paranoia, confusion, and despair. His parents never gave up on him, but the road was fraught with frustration and heartbreak. Despite his family's wealth and influence, Nick's struggles led him to a life far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. He experienced periods of homelessness, a testament to the powerful grip of his addiction and illness. He drifted through the margins of society, a ghost haunting the family that loved him so desperately. This was the painful paradox of Nick's existence. He was the son of Hollywood royalty, yet he lived the life of an outcast. His story was a private agony for the Reiner family, a constant source of worry and fear. They tried everything: therapy, medication, rehab centers, tough love, but nothing seemed to provide a lasting solution to the demons that tormented their son. His parents' efforts to help him were public knowledge, in part because they chose to speak about it. They hoped that by sharing their story, they could shed light on the challenges faced by so many other families. They loved Nick deeply, and that love was expressed through a relentless, decades-long effort to pull him back from the brink. They provided him with housing, financial support, and access to the best treatment available. Yet the nature of his illness meant that even their boundless love and resources were not enough to conquer the powerful forces that were tearing his life, and ultimately their family, apart. His path was one of pain, isolation, and missed opportunities, a tragic prelude to the horror that was to come. In 2015, the Reiner family took the extraordinary step of turning their private pain into a public work of art. The film Being Charlie, directed by Rob Reiner, was a semi-autobiographical story based directly on Nick Reiner's harrowing experiences with addiction and rehab. Nick himself co-wrote the screenplay, a creative collaboration that was both an act of therapy and a desperate attempt to make sense of his chaotic life. The film's protagonist, Charlie Mills, is the 18-year-old son of a famous actor-turned-politician. He bounces between various treatment centers, struggles with his sobriety, and clashes with his well-meaning but often frustrated father. The parallels to Nick and Rob's real-life relationship were unmistakable and intentional. The film was a raw and unflinching look at the world of teenage addiction. It depicted the revolving door of rehab, the manipulative behaviors of young addicts, and the complex family dynamics that both fuel and are destroyed by substance abuse. For Rob Reiner, directing the film was a way to better understand his son. He has spoken about how the project forced him to see the world through Nick's eyes, to comprehend the pain and confusion that drove his self-destructive behavior. It was a father's attempt to bridge the seemingly insurmountable gap between them, using the language he knew best: filmmaking. The hope was that this shared creative endeavor could be a turning point for Nick, a way for him to find purpose and a path toward healing. However, Being Charlie also laid bare the deep-seated tensions within the family. The father character in the film is portrayed as loving, but also controlling and somewhat distant, more focused on his public image than on his son's emotional needs. While fictionalized, these elements likely reflected some of the real frustrations Nick felt. The film did not shy away from showing the anger and resentment that can build between a child struggling with addiction and parents who feel helpless and exhausted. In retrospect, the film serves as a chilling document of the family's long-standing turmoil. It was a cry for help, a confession, and a family portrait all rolled into one. Watching the film today in the shadow of the December 2025 tragedy is an almost unbearable experience. Every scene of conflict, every line of dialogue about anger and despair feels like a dark premonition. The film was meant to be a story of hope, a narrative about the possibility of recovery and reconciliation. It was intended to show that even in the darkest of times, connection and understanding were possible. But now, Being Charlie stands as a tragic monument to a struggle that was ultimately lost. It is a cinematic record of a family's desperate fight to save their son, a fight that ended in the most devastating way imaginable, turning a story of hope into a prologue for a real-life horror story. The events that culminated in the horrific murders of Rob and Michele Reiner did not occur in a vacuum. They were, honestly, the explosive endpoint of years of escalating tension and a particularly fraught final weekend. According to witness reports that surfaced in the days following the tragedy, the night before the murders was marked by a significant and public confrontation between father and son. On Saturday, December 13, 2025, Rob and Nick Reiner attended a party at the home of another entertainment industry figure, Conan O'Brien. What should have been a festive holiday gathering quickly devolved into a deeply unsettling scene, providing a grim foreshadowing of the violence that was to come. Witnesses at the party described Nick's behavior as erratic and disturbing. He was reportedly agitated and confrontational, causing discomfort among the other guests. One attendee later told reporters that Nick was, quote, freaking everyone out, his demeanor volatile and unpredictable. This led to a major argument between him and his father, Rob. The exact details of their dispute are not public, but it was clear to those who saw it that the conflict was intense. For a family that had spent years trying to manage Nick's unpredictable behavior, this public outburst must have been both embarrassing and, well, deeply distressing. The argument was a stark public display of the private turmoil that had been simmering for decades. The confrontation at the party appears to have been a critical tipping point. While the Reiners were accustomed to dealing with Nick's difficult behavior, this public incident may have pushed an already fragile situation to its breaking point. It is not difficult to imagine the tense conversations that must have followed, the mix of anger, fear, and exhaustion that Rob and Michele must have felt. They returned to their home that night with the weight of their son's latest crisis heavy upon them. The argument did not end at the party, it almost certainly continued, echoing through the halls of the family home, and setting the stage for the tragedy that would unfold the next day. On Sunday, the confrontation allegedly reached its fatal conclusion. While the precise sequence of events inside the Reiner home is known only to the perpetrator, authorities believe the murders were not premeditated but rather an impulsive act of rage during another heated argument. Something on that Sunday afternoon caused Nick to snap. The argument escalated into unimaginable violence, and he allegedly used a knife to attack both of his parents. The official cause of death, listed as multiple knife wounds for both Rob and Michele, paints a picture of a frenzied and brutal attack. The people who had spent their lives trying to save him became the victims of his final catastrophic loss of control. The hours following the discovery of Rob and Michele Reiner's bodies were a blur of police activity and frantic searching. While the crime scene was being processed, a manhunt was underway for the primary suspect, Nick Reiner. He had fled the family home after the horrific events, leaving a scene of carnage behind him. His disappearance triggered an alert across Los Angeles law enforcement agencies. For more than 5 hours, his whereabouts were unknown. Then, a sighting was reported. Nick was seen at a gas station not far from his parents' home, casually buying a drink as if nothing had happened. This small, mundane act stood in chilling contrast to the brutality of the crime he was suspected of committing. His arrest soon followed. Police officers located and apprehended him without a struggle. The image of the son of one of Hollywood's most beloved figures being taken into custody for the murder of his parents was a shocking and surreal sight. Nick Reiner was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The charges carried a special allegation of using a knife during the commission of the crimes, a detail that underscored the violent nature of the attack. Due to the severity of the charges and the double homicide, he was ordered to be held in custody without the possibility of bail. The legal system began its slow, deliberate process of seeking justice for an act that seemed to defy all reason. The legal proceedings hit an unexpected snag early on. Nick was initially represented by a high-profile private defense attorney, a move expected for a family of such means. However, in a surprising turn of events in early January 2026, his lawyer abruptly withdrew from the case. The reasons for this withdrawal were not made public, but it caused a significant delay in the legal process. Nick Reiner's arraignment, where he would have formally entered a plea, was postponed to February 2026. This development meant that the family and the public would have to wait even longer for the case to move forward and for any potential answers to emerge. With the departure of his private counsel, Nick Reiner is now set to be represented by a public defender. This shift marks another sad chapter in the family's story, highlighting the complete breakdown of the life his parents had tried so hard to build for him. The case now rests in the hands of the state, both for the prosecution and the defense. As of today, January 9, 2026, Nick remains incarcerated, awaiting his next court date. The legal path ahead will be long and complex, likely involving intense scrutiny of his mental state at the time of the killings. The question of whether he will face the death penalty, a possibility given the charges, looms over the case, adding another layer of gravity to the immense tragedy. The news of Rob and Michele Reiner's murders sent a current of profound shock and grief through Hollywood. This was not just the death of a celebrity, it was the loss of a foundational pillar of the community. Rob Reiner was a mentor, a friend, and a collaborator to countless actors, writers, and directors. Tributes began pouring in from every corner of the entertainment industry. Stars who had worked with him on his most famous films, from Billy Crystal to Tom Cruise, released statements expressing their devastation. They remembered him not just as a brilliant director but as a kind, funny, and generous man who shaped their careers and lives. The response from the family was one of unimaginable pain. The Reiners' surviving children, Jake and Romy, released a joint statement that captured the depth of their loss. They described their parents as our best friends, a simple but powerful testament to the close and loving family life Rob and Michele had cultivated. Their words painted a portrait of parents who were not distant Hollywood figures, but deeply involved, supportive, and cherished members of their family. The statement was a heartbreaking reminder that behind the towering public legacy were 2 people who were, first and foremost, a beloved father and mother. Their grief was now compounded by the horrifying knowledge that their own brother was the one accused of this terrible act. Hollywood is a community that is no stranger to tragedy, but this event felt different. It struck at the heart of one of its most respected families, a dynasty that stretched back generations. Friends and colleagues spoke of the Reiners' home as a place of warmth and welcome, making the violence that occurred within its walls all the more incomprehensible. Memorials, both official and spontaneous, emerged across Los Angeles. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes were left outside the gates of their home. Industry publications ran lengthy retrospectives on Rob Reiner's career, celebrating his artistic contributions while trying to make sense of the senseless violence that ended his life. The tragedy also sparked immediate and widespread discussion within the entertainment community. People were not just mourning the loss of 2 wonderful people, they were grappling with the deeply disturbing circumstances of their deaths. The story of Nick Reiner's long battle with mental illness and addiction was well known to many in their circle. His parents' struggle to help him was a source of quiet sympathy and admiration. The horrific outcome forced many to confront the terrifying reality that even with immense love, wealth, and access to resources, some battles with mental illness can be lost in the most catastrophic way imaginable. The community was left to mourn not just the victims, but the entire family that had been destroyed. The Reiner family tragedy has cast a harsh and uncomfortable spotlight on the complex intersection of mental health, addiction, and the pressures of living in the public eye. While the Reiners had every resource at their disposal, financial wealth, access to the best medical experts, and a strong support network of friends, their story is a devastating reminder that these advantages do not grant immunity from the ravages of severe mental illness and substance abuse. In fact, growing up in the shadow of immense fame can create its own unique set of pressures that may exacerbate underlying issues. The expectation to live up to a famous parent's legacy can be a crushing burden for a child. For families in the public eye, the struggle with a child's addiction or mental illness is often a private hell played out on a public stage. Every misstep, every relapse, and every cry for help can become fodder for tabloid headlines. The Reiner family chose to confront this reality head-on with the film, but for many famous families, the instinct is to hide the problem, to maintain a facade of perfection. This can lead to intense feelings of isolation and shame, making it even harder for the person struggling to get the help they need. The constant scrutiny adds a layer of stress that most families do not have to endure, complicating an already impossibly difficult situation. The case also forces a broader societal conversation about how we handle severe mental illness, particularly when it is combined with addiction. Nick Reiner's reported diagnosis of schizophrenia, a condition that can involve psychosis and a break from reality, is a critical element of this story. The legal and medical systems often struggle to effectively treat individuals with such a dual diagnosis. Families are left to navigate a confusing and often inadequate patchwork of psychiatric care, rehabilitation centers, and law enforcement. They are often caught in a terrible bind, trying to get help for a loved one who may resist treatment or whose illness makes them a potential danger to themselves or others. Ultimately, the Reiner family's story is a worst-case scenario that terrifies any parent who has a child with severe mental health or addiction issues. It shows that love, patience, and money are not always enough. It highlights the systemic failures and the sheer brutal power of these illnesses. The tragedy serves as a grim cautionary tale about the limits of parental influence and the devastating consequences when the healthcare and legal systems fail to provide a safety net for the most vulnerable. It forces us to ask difficult questions about our collective responsibility and whether we are doing enough to support families who are fighting these desperate battles every single day, both in and out of the spotlight. As the initial shock of the tragedy begins to subside, what remains is a profound sense of loss and a future clouded by unanswered questions. The legacy of Rob and Michele Reiner is one of immense creativity, kindness, and love. Rob's films will continue to be watched and celebrated for generations, his work a permanent part of our cultural lexicon. He taught us that men and women can be just friends, that true love is worth fighting for, and that we can, in fact, handle the truth. Michele's legacy is quieter but no less significant. It lives on in the memories of those who knew her warmth and in the beautiful family she built and fought so hard to protect. Theirs was a partnership built on mutual respect and deep affection, a beacon in the often turbulent world of Hollywood. Their deaths leave a void that can never be filled, but the story does not end here. The focus now shifts to the slow, painful process of the legal system and the fate of their son, Nick. His trial will force a deeper examination of the events that led to that horrific December day. It will delve into his state of mind, his long history of illness, and the complex dynamics of his relationship with his parents. The proceedings will be watched closely by the public, not for spectacle, but for some semblance of understanding. How could a son do this to the parents who loved him? Was it the act of a coherent mind, or the tragic result of a brain ravaged by illness? These are the questions the court will attempt to answer. For the surviving family members, Jake and Romy, the path forward is unimaginably difficult. They have lost their parents in the most brutal way possible, and they have lost their brother to the very darkness that took them. Their private grief will be a lifelong journey, conducted under the unfortunate glare of public interest. They are now the keepers of their parents' legacy and the living victims of a family tragedy of almost Shakespearean proportions. Their strength and resilience in the face of such overwhelming loss will be a quiet, ongoing part of this story, a testament to the love that their parents instilled in them. In the end, the murder of Rob and Michele Reiner is a story with no winners, only losers. It is a narrative of profound love and devastating loss, of a family's desperate struggle against the insidious forces of mental illness and addiction. It serves as a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the terrifying reality that some demons cannot be conquered, no matter how hard we fight. While the world remembers Rob Reiner for the joy and laughter he brought to the screen, the final chapter of his life is a heartbreaking lesson about the deep and often hidden sorrows that can exist even behind the most successful and beloved of facades. The questions surrounding their deaths may one day be answered in a courtroom, but the pain of this tragedy will echo forever.